to a large extent. And I'm very grateful that I worked with a wonderful teacher when I began to write. And I started out relatively late. I was 30 years old when I sat down to write my first fiction. But a very valuable teacher to me was a woman named Gladys Swan, who said to me, Wally, the world is an old place, and you're never going to tell an original story, because all of the stories that people need have been in the culture since antiquity. She said, the best thing you can do is put your original take, your original spin on one of the archetypal stories. And so she led me to a reading list that included Joseph Campbell and Edith Hamilton and Claude Levi-Strauss. And from the start, I've used the ancient myths as a sort of a spine, a backbone for the modern stories I'm trying to tell. My first novel, Le Chant de Dolores, the backbone of that, believe it or not, is Homer's Odyssey. La puissance des vaincus comes from an ancient Hindu myth called The King and the Corpse. And of course, as you mentioned, this more recent novel deals with the Minotaur, the monster, in the middle of the maze, and Theseus is having to conquer, not only conquer the monster, but then find his way out. Well, again, in the ancient stories, there's always a helpmate, an animal who is a totem animal who helps the hero on the journey, along the journey. And so I always have an animal somehow pivotal in my stories. Now in this one I have two animals. Of course, if you have ever studied about chaos theory, the cliche about chaos theory is that a butterfly flutters its wings in Africa and causes a tsunami, in South America, let's say. In other words, small disturbances sometimes lead to large repercussions. I see that butterfly then as a symbol of doom, bad things coming from small things. On the other hand, the mantis I see as a symbol of hope. And that harkens back to something that happened in the early days of my writing the novel. My youngest son brought home a praying mantis egg case. It was something from school, and it had never hatched. And so in the middle of the summer, suddenly the impossible happened. This dead egg case suddenly was crawling with tiny praying mantises, maybe about 100 of them. And I still can picture looking at that with him and him jumping up and down with excitement. And so the mantis in my novel becomes a symbol of hope.